So there is a really terrible riot that is going on in Colombia. And for those of you, if you've been seeing or hearing about it, Colombia has had multiple protests. And so, Colombia protests, what is behind this unrest? So, a lot of people might be wondering what is going on. And it's sad because there is like extreme violence going on right now. And so when I read this article, it's really, really sad how things are going over there. So this is a picture right here of a demonstrator that are now calling for reforms in some of the areas, including education and healthcare. And so there are a lot of protesters that have been very vocal lately in Colombia, and they're speaking out about the issues of reform and a lot of the things that have happened, social issues in their country. So, a number of police stations have been attacked in the Colombian capital of, now, I may mispronounce the name, so I'm sorry for that. So, Bogota was a wide or as a widespread protest runs into the second week. So, Mayor Claudia Lopez requested that the help of the army to guard the stations, calling the violence inadmissible. So demonstrators were gathering for fresh nationwide protest on Wednesday. So at least 24 people, including a police officer, have died since the protest had started. So the United Nations has urged the security forces to refrain from using firearms. But as I read this, I'm going to stop here. It is extreme violence. There has been killings. There has been a lot of people in the street who have been gunned down. And literally, there have been like women, children, anybody that's out there is in danger of dying. And so it has been extremely dangerous times to be out that way. It has ongoing violence. I mean, that you wouldn't believe. And so it says demonstrators were gathering for a fresh nationwide protest on Wednesday, so at least 24 people. I would think it's more than that. The numbers are growing. So, including a police officer, have died since the protest started. So, the United Nations were urging security forces to refrain from using firearms. Now, let's get into this. The police were believed to be responsible for 11 of those deaths. Colombia's ombudsman said more than 800 people have been injured in the clashes between police and demonstrators, while more than 80 others are reported missing. And so Bogota's city officials said that 25 immediate response police commando posts, known as CAI for the initials in Spanish, had been attacked during the night. So CAI are small police stations which can be found dotted across neighborhoods and often consist of little more than a room or two. So one CAI was set on fire with 15 officers inside who managed to escape alive, Mr. Lopez said. So there were also reports of police being shot and being attacked by people with knives. That's what she added. So on Wednesday, city officials said the night of violence across Bogota had left 30 civilians and 16 police officers injured. Incidences were also reported in other cities, including Cali, where the clashes have been at their most violent. Why are the people protesting? The demonstration started April the 28th, where were initially in opposition to the tax reform that the government said was key to mitigating the country's economic crisis. Now, what was this brought on by? The nationwide protest initially against the now canceled tax reform bill. The rallies were organized by the biggest trade unions, but were also joined by many middle class people who feared the changes could see them slip into poverty. Almost half the country's population now lives in poverty, with inequalities that were exacerbated by, you know what, the pandemic. And so it doesn't sound too far off from some of the craziness that's happened here in the States. So the proposal would have lowered the threshold at the salaries are taxed, affecting anyone with a monthly income of 2.6 M pesos. And so you can do that, $684, you know, so or more. So it would also have eliminated many of the current exemptions enjoyed by individuals as well as increasing taxes imposed on businesses. So on Sunday, President Ivan Duque announced that he would withdraw the bill, but that was not enough to stop the protests, which have become a broad call for improvements to Colombia's pension, health, and education systems, as well as against what demonstrators say excessive use of violence by security forces. Sounds sort of familiar. So this picture you're seeing here is complete chaos in Cali. What is happening in Cali? This is what's happening in Cali. The pictures don't lie. So some of the most violent incidences have been reported in the western city of Cali, the country's third largest. Roads have been blocked and dozens of police, public and private buildings have been attacked. And so the commander of the army was has been sent to the city to coordinate security efforts. So this is complete chaos. Look at this. And so nobody is safe in any of this. And so Cali has been the scene of some of the worst clashes ever right now. And so the United Nations Human Rights Office said on Tuesday that it was deeply alarmed by the violence against the protesters in the city, saying that police opened fire on demonstrators. Y'all, they came by and just started shooting at demonstrators. No rubber bullets either. So Kevin Reyes, a community leader, told BBC Mundo that hooded police and military officers fired using semi-automatic weapons and rifles during a demonstration, and there were kids and mothers out there. He added, and so experts say other factors have contributed to the unrest, and this is one of the most violent cities in the country, located in the region affected by decades of conflict waged by paramilitary groups and drug traffickers. And so they also pointed to the high number of weapons in that area. So the civilians groups calling for de-escalation of violence said that Catherine Agori, a human rights expert, and so, but we have also seen groups of citizens who have started shooting from their houses. Vigilantism has gone on out there, stimulated by the flow of weapons in that city in Cali. And so, what is the government saying? The government has blamed the violence on left wing rebels. And so it says it is being stoked by members of the National Liberation Army, which is ELN, and so as well as dissident factions of the FARC guerrilla group, who have not accepted the 2016 peace deal and have refused to disband. And so the violence was systemic, premeditated, and financed by criminal organizations, Defense Minister Diego Molano said. And so these are things that they're saying. So, everybody knows in the country what's going on. Of course, they're over there and they're fighting this battle, and it's so crazy because, you know, how some governments will try to hide things in media, and so but we're slowly seeing through reporters and maybe activism of people that are actually calling for SOS and call to help in these situations, because we know even what has happened here in the states when these type of riots or things happen having to do with social issues. So the violence was systemic and premeditated and financed, they say, by criminal organizations, Defense Minister Diego Molano said. Police officials say in many cases it was their officers who were attacked as they tried to prevent criminal elements from looting stores and torching buses. And so, meanwhile, President Duque said the government was ready for national dialogue and announced the creation of a space to listen to citizens and construct solutions. But that doesn't look like that's what's happening right now. So it is not the first time that the anti-government protests have turned deadly in Colombia. So this is not the first, but mostly recently, last September, at least 7 people were killed in a protest that was triggered by a deadly tasering of a man by police in Bogota. And so this is what's going on. It is crazy. And this is just yet one of the pictures that are there. They're showing there are multiple pictures, I'm sure, surfacing on Facebook, Twitter, and some other places. And then there's some TikTok people that may be getting to social media. They're trying to shut their social media down because they don't want people to get out and activists to get out and start speaking and everything, because you know how some people will come out and just they have to just tell the truth about what's going on, what we don't hear in their news, so. And it's pretty much like that here in the States. That's what's been happening. You got to get your news, sadly but truly, you almost got to get your news from people that are on social media, that are activists, or people who live in these areas that are actually going through the situation, because the news will only tell you so much because it's controlled, of course. But anyway, having said that, I'm going to let this go. But yeah, it is crazy out there right now. And so you be looking out for this, because I don't know, you might even see more pictures of violent clashes surfacing. I'm sure. Um, when I saw this, I was like, wow, I was floored, because I saw some photos where it looked like there was things that were being burned, places like going up in flames, being torched. And so, one will say this one did this, and the other one will say this one did that. But, you know how it is when, people's requests aren't met, and there has been time for these social issues to be resolved, but they go unchecked, and the people are ignored, and you have the people who are working the hardest at the bottom, uh, just really trying to survive, and their needs are never really taken serious. And then those that can maybe financially do a little better, they're able to kind of skate by, or maybe they're able to do some, maybe doing a lot better, and they're able to get through this pandemic. And hasn't that been what it has been here in the States? It's very similar. We've had some riots, many outclashes, and and I don't think this is over here even in the US, because now we have a federal judge that's trying to strike down a moratorium, which was a national moratorium that was protecting renters and people in houses as well. So I hear some of the middle class here in the U.S. supposed to be doing a little bit better than those that are, making a lot less. And so they're more dependent on that moratorium than ever. And by them striking it down, they're trying to fight this right now. But by them trying to get rid of that moratorium, could we might see something like this happen here in the US, even though they're trying to reopen businesses. They're trying to force people to make decisions. It's either you go back to work or you get evicted. What are you going to do? And people are now rethinking about what they went through in some of these jobs, how they were exploited, or they were paid like really low wages, and they were just barely making it. And then I even saw an article recently saying that the rents and the housing is skyrocketing in some of these areas, and so they want you to go back to getting this low pay, but you're not able to live anywhere. you know how do you do that? And so I'm not surprised that this is happening here in Colombia. I'm not surprised if it starts happening in other places. So having said that, I'm going to let this video go. What do you think about that? There are some crazy pictures that are floating around on social media, and those pictures aren't a lie. If you see like a lot of people fighting and everything in Colombia, and people running in the streets, and it's crazy chaos and violence, well, this is the reason why. So having said that, I'm going to let this video go. Thanks for listening.